Hi, I'm Sarah Lacy, and welcome to TechCrunch TV. My guest today is Nat Goldhaber, who is a managing director with Claremont Creek Ventures, and he has done some research and thinks, finally, 2011 is going to be the year of the clean tech IPO. Nat, thanks for joining us. Tell us about why 2011 is finally it.
Well, I think you have a variety of factors that mitigate in favor of a successful IPO season. First of all, we have a couple of IPOs that have done fairly well in 2010, and the most notable of which has been Tesla, I think. And we have sort of a variety of different factors that suggest that the economy is returning. So last quarter we had a unexpected 2.5% improvement in GDP, which is great because it's not inflationary, but it shows that there's movement in the right direction. It is inevitable, I think, that some form of cap and trade, either at the state level in California or nationally, is going to begin to take effect. And that's going to have a material improvement in demand for alternative energy, for renewable energy, and for energy conservation. I think that more states are probably going to uncouple their utilities, which means that the utilities will earn money not based on how much electricity they sell, but rather on how much on how well they conform to the ideas of their public utility commissions about what ought to occur from an energy conservation standpoint. Global competitiveness for scarce energy resources, and a general sort of favorable view preached from the bully pulpit of the White House and other folks in Washington, D.C., coupled with financing, which will make companies, which will bring companies first from the conceptual stage into real marketplaces, and from marketplaces into the public market, into the IPO market.
Do you think clean tech generally has moved on from being a fad? A couple years ago, before the recession, it tended, everyone in Silicon Valley traded in their BMWs for Priuses, and it kind of became the thing to do. Inconvenient Truth was winning Oscars. I mean, there was this faddish coolishness around clean tech and sort of a necessary counterculture reaction to that. Do you think it's now sort of beyond the fashionable and just kind of common sense?
I think it's still fashionable. And I'm not sure that fashionable necessarily equates with bubblish. But I completely agree with you. When we first saw the emergence of the clean tech marketplace, we had a funny expression around our office. We called it a bub. It was a bubble with no exit.
That sounds like a redneck driving a truck to me.
No, that's baba. Different. So it clearly was faddish. There was way too much money flowing into clean tech in the very early stages. Companies were getting valuations that were silly. I think that's calmed down a lot, and I think that there's a much more rational, sober view of the potential value of companies with more appropriate valuations and probably better business plans.
Now, along with the fashionable nature of clean tech, everyone was greening their business plan. Suddenly, everyone was a clean tech company in some way or the other. So it's such a big category. The companies that we were seeing going public before were all sort of solar, and then there was a big reaction against solar. So next year, and looking at the companies that might be filing, S1s, already have, or in registration, what areas of clean tech do they tend to be in? Because there's a big difference between Tesla and, SunTech or SunPower.
Well, there's a bunch of companies that I think are still in the solar domain that are expecting to go public. So of the ones that haven't announced, which I would speculate are likely to go public, actually almost all of them have something to do with solar. One of them, I think, one of the good candidates is somebody like Enphase that builds a very clever and effective inverter system that goes on the roof with the panels rather than in the basement. I think Solyndra and Mia Soleil are still likely to get out. Solyndra pulled its IPO, but I imagine that they'll figure out a way to get out. And BrightSource, which is the first real, genuine utility scale solar generation plant in the world, is, I would bet, going to go out. So that's a bunch of solar-related companies still. The others are sort of in the biofuel area, and I guess there's some material science things like LEDs that are other than solar, but are still sort of silicon-based.
Mm-hmm. And what about your portfolio? Tell us about one of your companies that, you know, is either very James Bond and science fiction-y, or it's just a great business that you're the most proud of.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. In the last couple of weeks, I have really, I'm not kidding about this, seen business plans for cold fusion, resurfacing again. They called it something different, but that's what it was. And I saw a business plan for a jetpack. Strap it on your back and fly up to 80 miles, you know, not using fossil fuels, of course. It's terrible, not very.
That doesn't sound very clean tech at all.
No, but it's definitely futuristic. A company that does not require an enormous amount of capital to get to a successful exit, I think that's probably the right way to describe it, is a company called EcoFactor. And EcoFactor is in the area of energy conservation. Energy conservation typically is less demanding of capital resources than, for example, BrightSource, which requires billions and billions of dollars to build a plant. So we invested in them, and what they do is intriguing. So what they do is they use a very simple mechanism to determine the characteristics of your residence, your home, and then they do an informed and highly accurate set ahead and setback of your heating and air conditioning system to maximize the two most important issues: comfort and energy conservation. And what's cool about it is that unlike complicated thermostats and all the devices that sort of inform you about how much energy you're using, this actually puts your house essentially on autopilot. You set it up once or twice in the early days of having it in your home. It learns your habits and it learns the characteristics of the house. Then from then on, it knows about the outside temperature. It knows how leaky your house is, how fast it dissipates energy. It knows about how the efficiency of your heating or air conditioning system, and hence it knows exactly when to turn on the heater or air conditioner so that you are at maximum comfort and yet there is no waste. I think that is a truly brilliant system. And when I first heard about it, I said, I don't believe it, because the one thing that they use is your thermostat talking to the internet, sending information off to the cloud, and that's the only measurement point in your house. That turns out to be sufficient to effect this really marvelous energy savings and improvement in comfort.
I mean, it sounds like they could solve lots of our problems.
And that's the robot.
Yeah, invest in a robot. Robots and jetpacks. That's all I want. That's all I want from you, Nat.